Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Satarasata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace of Bhāgavatam Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jaya Nityalila Vishnu Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Satarasata Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Govinda Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Shri Braja Bhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Chaitra Dham Ki Gangamai Ki Yamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled, I Have Done My Part. On the last day of July, the governor of Tamil Nadu, Sri Prabhu Das Patwari, who was visiting Vrindavan, paid a short visit to Srila Prabhupada. The governor could only stay half an hour, but Srila Prabhupada spoke energetically with him the entire time. When Srila Prabhupada explained his condition of health, the governor at once invited Srila Prabhupada to come to Madras and stay at the Raj Bhavan, the governor's mansion, where he said the best doctors in the whole of South Asia were available. But Prabhupada, rather than prolong the discussions about his body, used his bodily condition as an example to preach the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. After all, he said, so long we have got this body, then janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. We have to accept. This is the statement of Bhagavad Gita. So the human endeavor should be to stop this repetition of birth and death. When Vishwamitra Maharaj went to see King Dasarat, the king inquired, Punar Janma Jayaya. Jayaya. You are a great saintly person trying to conquer over birth and death. Is your process going on nicely? You should remember that. Puna Janma Jayaya. Jayaya. Prabhupada then used the example of his bodily condition in a different way to illustrate the concept of Varnashram Dharma. He compared the Brahmanas to the head, the Kshatriyas to the arms, the Vaishyas to the belly, and the Shudras to the legs. If they are all in good condition, then the health is all right, said Prabhupada. Now at the present moment I am suffering because my belly department is not working. So we cannot neglect any department. There must be all departments, and they must be cooperative and healthy. This movement is meant for that purpose. It is the duty of government to give us protection. Srila Prabhupada mentioned the devotees' recent difficulties in Mayapur and asked for protection. We'll do it, no doubt, Governor Patwari replied. I'm meeting the Prime Minister tomorrow, and we are going to discuss that matter. The governor acknowledged that the reports in the newspapers were distorted. He asserted that Madras had a good atmosphere for religious work, and he mentioned several swamis who were doing good work. Of one, he said, he's making good propaganda about God everywhere. There are many persons making propaganda, said Prabhupada, frankly, but if you don't mind me saying so, all these men are in ignorance of what is the real meaning of Gita. Bhagavad Gita, he said, should be understood as it is, and it should be adopted especially by the Rajarshis, or government leaders. Again, the governor said how nice it would be if Prabhupada would come to Madras. Prabhupada seemed to consider it seriously and thanked the governor. Finally, Prabhupada requested help in getting the permanent residency in India for some of his disciples. They will never do any harm, he said. They will never take part in politics. I know it, said the governor, I know it. So kindly try to help, said Prabhupada. Later, when Prabhupada mentioned he was 50% decided to go to Madras, he and his servants began discussing the merits of travel to Madras and other places in the world. Although he could not move even a few feet without assistance, if Krishna desired, he was willing to travel. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, 21st chapter, texts 32 and 33. They skipped 32 yesterday, I believe. Right? It was Prabhupada lecture. So we'll have to catch up and do 32 and 33 so that we don't throw everyone else's schedule off. Is that okay? So which one should we chant? 32 or 33? Which one's up? 32. All right, we'll chant 32. Sahang swam sakalaya. Sahang swang sakalaya. Twadviryena mahamune. Twadviryena mahamune. Tava shetre devahutyam. Tava shetre devahutyam. Praneshe tattva sanghitam. Praneshe tattva sanghitam. Please chant. Saham swangsa kalaya. Twadviryena mahamune. Tava chetre devahutyam. Praneshe tattva sanghitam. Sahang swangsa kalaya. Twadviryena mahamune. Tava shetre devahutyam. Praneshe tattva sanghitam. Sahang swangsa kalaya. Twadviryena mahamune. Tava chetre devahutyam. Praneshe tattva sanghitam. Pranaham Sansakalaya Twadviryena Mahamune Tavashetre Devahutyam Vanesye Tatpasanghitam. Ladies. Sahahang Sansakalaya Twadviryena Mahamune Davachetre Devahutyam Vaneshe Tadvasanghitam. Saha with Aham I Swangsa Kalaya my own plenary portion Twadviryena by your semen Mahamune, O great sage, Davashetre, in your wife, Devahutyam, in Devahuti, Praneshe, I shall instruct, Tattva, of the ultimate principles, Sanghitam, the doctrine. Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories. Please repeat. O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories. Purport. Herein the word Swangsa Kalaya indicates that the Lord would appear as the son of Devahuti and Kardama Muni as Kapila Dev, the first propounder of the Sankhya philosophy, which is mentioned here as Tattva Sanghita. The Lord foretold to Kardama Muni that he would appear in his incarnation Kapila Dev and would propagate the philosophy of Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy is very well known in the world as propagated by another Kapila Dev, but that Sankhya philosophy is different from the Sankhya which was propounded by the Lord himself. There are 2 kinds of Sankhya philosophy. One is godless Sankhya philosophy, and the other is godly Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya propagated by Kapila Dev, the son of Devahuti, is godly philosophy. There are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into 2 different expansions, one called Kala and the other Vibhanangsa. Ordinary living entities are called Vibhanangsa expansions, and the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayan, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta, are called Swangsa Kala. Swangsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord, from the original Lord. Baladev is an expansion of Krishna, and from Baladev the next expansion is Sankarshan. Thus Sankarshan is Kala, but Baladev is Swangsa. There is no difference, however, among them. This is very nicely explained in the Brahma Samhita 546. Departure evahi dasantaram abhyupeta. With 1 candle, one may light a second candle, with the second a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles. And no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full potential candle power, but there is still the distinction that one candle is the first, another the second, another the third, and another the fourth. Similarly, there is no difference between the immediate expansion of the Lord and his secondary expansion. The Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his quality all have the same potency. In the absolute world, the name Krishna of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord, whom we worship, and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or a statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. one gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'll read text 3 and then we'll do the purport. Maitreya vacha evang tam anubasyata bhagavan pratyagaksajaha jagama bindu sarasa sarasvatya parishritat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Maitreya went on, thus having spoken to Kardama Muni, the Lord who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness, departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovara, which was encircled by the river Saraswati. Purport. One word in this verse is significant. The Lord is stated here to be Pratyag Aksaja. He is imperceptible to material senses, but still he can be seen. This appears to be contradictory. We have material senses, but how can we see the Supreme Lord? He is called Adhoksaja, which means that he cannot be seen by the material senses. Aksaja means knowledge perceived by material senses. Because the Lord is not an object that can be understood by speculation with our material senses, he is also called Ajita. He will conquer, but no one can conquer him. What does it mean then that still he can be seen? It is explained that no one can hear the transcendental name of Krishna. No one can understand his transcendental form, and no one can assimilate his transcendental pastimes. It is not possible. Then how is it possible that he can be seen and understood? When one is trained in devotional service and renders service unto him, gradually one's senses are purified of material contamination. When one's senses are thus purified, when one's senses are thus purified of material contamination, when one's senses are thus purified, then one can see, one can understand, one can hear, and so on. The purification of the material senses and perception of the transcendental form, name, and quality of Krishna are combined together in one word, Pratyag Aksaja, which is used here. Om Jnana Tamandasya Ganantara Shlakaya Chaksu Amritam Kadma Shri Vivekmaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Panguman Karitagam Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Guru Vidataram. Prabhupada focused in on one word, Pratyag Aksaja. Where else is that word found? In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vijaya Raja Goyam, what does it say? Raja Vijaya Raja Goyam Pavitramidamuttamam Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dhamyam Susukam Kartamavyam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and joyfully performed. So this pratyaksha means practically realized. Practically realized means with all of one's senses. But how? Because when one enters through purification into this higher consciousness, then automatically one gets the opportunity. But it is not a cheap thing. Manmana Bhavamad Bhaktoma Yaji Manu. Always think of me, become my devotee. So this is the key. But this is the, everybody has some conception that one has to build on, like there's a, what they call a KSA in the material world, knowledge, skills, and ability. Right? You put it on your resume. You have to list it. And based on that, people will consider your application. So they want to see what is your foundational knowledge. What do you have to offer? So here we also have, we have this basic understanding that when one is a neophyte devotee, he worships the deity in the temple, he has some sentiment, but his knowledge is not Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dhamyam. has not been practically realized. His senses have to be engaged, Rishikesha, Rishikena, Sevanam, Bhakti Uchite, in order to get into that level. And so we know that Ador, Shraddha, Tata, Sadhu, Sangha, these things have their basic building blocks in Krishna consciousness. And they're not always delineated in such a way that, you like a different level. You say this is pot washing, this is level 101, and then there's, you're working in a pujari room, that's level 102 or 201, however. Each level can actually put you into that Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma stage, where you're free from, you actually become liberated from the material conception of life. Liberation doesn't mean you get 4 arms. Liberation means from the material conception of life. That's liberated. One understands, I am not this body. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My goal is to serve Him. And that ultimate realization is that we will develop love for Krishna. So Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. And then the highest is Prema, Pumartha, Maha. Right? You have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Those are the 4 basic. Right? They pervade every aspect of the Varnashram system in every so-called level. Whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. All these things are there. They're concomitant. Just like in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which was formerly called Sankhya Yoga, now it is called Dhyana Yoga. They changed up the chapter title. We'll have to ask someone else about why that is so. But it says that there one is considered to be renounced when he's engaged in activities, which is just the opposite of our conception. We think renounce means you don't do anything. But there it clearly says that he who lights, not he who lights no fire or performs no sacrifices. No, just the opposite. That one should be engaged in service to Krishna. That is because you're renouncing a dharma. You're renouncing the material world. So that is the perfection of real engagement. No one can engage in Krishna service without having first eliminated his attachment to material activities. He has to give them up. They cannot. You cannot simultaneously perform one and expect to get the result of the other. It's incompatible. It can go on for some time. If one is fully Krishna conscious, he can do anything. He can be just like Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He was a district magistrate. This is not a petty post. This is the highest office at the district level. He's in charge of all the judges, all the police. He's in charge of everything in that area. He's basically the king of that district. There was one Britisher called F.S. Grouse. He wrote a book called District Memoir. He was the DM in Mathura in the mid-19th century, 1850s. That span of time also including the Sepoy Mutiny. So all that are very interesting. If you want to hear about that, read some history about Braj from that perspective at that time. It's called A District Memoir. It might be public domain by now. You might be able to read it online, but it's interesting from a historical perspective. Not that you should go immediately and set aside some time and read this book, but when you get some inclination, you have a little extra time when you're on pilgrimage someplace in Mathura and you have a little. And of course, this is the same time that Thakur Bhaktivinoda is also district magistrate. So you can see from that district memoir how involved Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in the affairs of his, at that time in Orissa, at Puri. So this is not a small thing. But he could do it, and what was his schedule? He would basically write all night. Srila Prabhupada, following in his footsteps, understood that he would sleep maximum 2 to 4 hours a night, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This is not possible for an ordinary man. Someone has to be completely on the liberated platform. Because he's able to ignore his body. How many here can say, oh, I can ignore my body? We see that immediately. Someone gets a little sick, they're out. We don't see them for a week. Right? We don't hear that about such great souls. They may have been afflicted by these things, but they ignored them. They did the bare minimum, whatever was required in order to keep body and soul together. That was the philosophy. Whatever was required to keep body and soul together. Health is there. Health must be maintained. But if one is doing that regular maintenance, just like if you regularly maintain a vehicle, you change the oil, you check the water, whatever is required at its routine intervals, then you won't have a problem. But if you neglect it, then you'll have problems. But then whose fault is that? So one has to maintain, this is not my body, this is Krishna's body. You know, if I'm not taking care of this, then how does that extend to my other aspects of my devotional service? How does that infiltrate my consciousness? So if I'm neglectful in this case, then what is that? How does that apply to my service? So one should not be neglectful at any level. And this takes practice. It's not simply, what do they say? Easier said than done. Everything takes practice. But you practice how to be detached by ignoring the body. They ignore this. What is it? It says, Vacha Vegam, Manasakota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udur Upasta Vegam. It's giving us instructions there, Rupa Goswami, how to control the urge to speak. That's the first one. Everybody wants to talk. People talk over each other all the time. Someone speaks, but they immediately want to say something. So that's the first, the urge to speak. And what's the second? The mind's demands. And the mind's demands are unlimited. It's always demanding something. I'm hungry, I'm sick, I'm tired, I'm restless, I'm lusty. One has to ignore the mind's demands and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. Right? So these things are all considered to be in a straight line. Right? You know, and then if one can control those, then he can make disciples. And only then. Not prematurely. It is not a post that one adopts superficially, you know, as an achievement. Right? Ambition has no part to play in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada say ambition will ruin your spiritual life. But one is thinking, I want to be GBC, I want to be president, I want to be that one. No. If you want to be the topmost servant, the gopis are not thinking to become Krishna. They're thinking to become the topmost servant of Krishna. So how can we become the topmost servant? So there's two words, sometimes easy to get them mixed up. Anusara and anukara. So anukara means to imitate, and anusara means to follow. But anukara could also mean, if you put dasya in front of it, dasya anukara, then it means that you're following or serving. You're not imitating, you're serving. So we have to decide, and we should examine that am I imitating or am I following? Because following the orders of the spiritual master is my life and soul. That's the key. But I should not be thinking how I can achieve some independent status and be recognized that, oh, I am such a special devotee. I did so many things. I deserve some accolades. But this is the what is Arjuna Nanda? He has as his icon, his avatar. It says, "Curb your ego." I think it's Arjuna, but it's somebody. Curb your ego. So this is an important issue that we all have to confront, and practically on a daily basis. Junadapi sunichena taro api sahishuna manina manadena, and then kirtaniya sadhari. And this, and the Bhagavad Gita, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us some essence for our edification. It's very simple to remember those. One has to remember all 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita and reflect on them. You can do that. But everything has been condensed. So all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita are there in 8 verses. One just simply has to follow them. We don't have to go through the whole thing. Nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavitaba, jagadishakam. This is our, it's like everybody has a motto or a mission statement. So our mission statement is, first of all, I don't want wealth, I don't want women, I don't want followers. That's our mission statement, personal. I only want your devotional service, birth after birth. So if we can internalize that, what else is needed? You have to, of course, understand who we're serving. We're serving Krishna. It's not that we're saying these things and meditating on some other object. So many objects of worship in the material world. People are worshiping money, they're worshiping whatever. Now it's not even money, now it's digital currency. How do you worship digital currency? You have to imagine it. We see that, and it's analogous that people, what happens to digital currency? It's easily hacked and stolen. Previously, a pickpocket, in India, what do they call pickpocket? Jeeb Katwala. Right? You go into the marketplace, you always have to make sure that your money is not easily accessible. Right? And I remember in the market, in Mathura, on Kotwali one time, you feel a bump. As soon as you feel a bump, it's already too late. It's already gone. Then you have to go chase the guy. So these things, it's just like that. So you can't have some imaginary asset. You have to have a real asset. You know, this crypto thing, it's there, it's in the cloud, it's whatever, it's got blockchain, it's so-called protected. But billions of dollars are lost every day by hackers. They're laughing all the way to their own crypto bank. They're thinking these people are so stupid. They're putting all their money in some digital thing. They can't go to your house and steal your gold and money. But if you put it someplace out in the open, you're inviting somebody to come and hack it, steal it. Billions of dollars. Thieves' paradise. Making it so easy. So you have to guard your assets very carefully. And the primary assets is your sense of servitorship. I am a servant. Prabhupada in that 6th chapter, not in the purport to that verse, but in the lecture. So that lecture series became Yoga System, series of 7 tapes. Prabhupada recorded Los Angeles, 1969. So I don't know how they're categorized now, but if you just go to Database and you look from at the lectures associated with that 6th chapter in Database, that's the Yoga System. And Prabhupada very elaborately, very concisely gives this essence to these devotees who are listening at that time. And that time it was called the Sankhya Yoga, but now it's Dhyana Yoga. But he was saying in that lecture, in that first verse, that the doing means serving, and serving means doing, not some just elusive concept that one has to consider philosophically, abstractly, or like, no, it's very practical. If someone is a servant, he's doing something. It's not, you're not a servant by thinking. You can't think that I'm serving Prabhupada. You're not like the Brahmin described in the Nectar Devotion who burned his finger in the sweet rice. Okay? Guru Maharaj comes and tells you, where's my breakfast? Oh Maharaj, I already cooked it and served it in my mind. It's a thought that counts, right? Right? Isn't that what the Kramis, they say? They use that thing. It's a thought that When someone misses an anniversary or a birthday, they say, but I was thinking about you. It's the thought that counts. No, that doesn't fly. Right? So you have to be careful about how you meditate on my role in this huge society. Who am I? You know? So that Sambandha Abhideya Prayojan, it answers all those things from a practical perspective. You understand first, what is your relationship? Who am I? What is my relationship? And what is the goal of that relationship? So if I'm a servant, then I must serve. I can't, it's not an abstract concept that, it can be fulfilled according to my capricious, whimsical, mental speculation. It's defined. We see what is there in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's all reciprocal service. The devotees are serving the Lord, and the Lord is serving the devotees. So this is you can't expect any reciprocation simply on the mental platform. It has to be practically, just like pratyaksha vagamam, this is the word, has to be practically realized by practical engagement. So we just have to remember that. Practically realized by practical engagement. And then you'll see that everything you in the temple or outside is an opportunity to engage in service. It's not just something that I observe in passing and I accept or reject according to my particular mental state that moment, that day, that hour. No. If one is looking to serve, he will see service everywhere. He will see service everywhere. And if one is not looking to serve, then he will not see service. It's just like he'll walk around like a blindfold on. He'll tell me somebody smacks him on the head and says, hey, you're on the schedule to wash the pots. Krishna consciousness, if anything, is proactive. There's nothing reactive. All proactive. You can be reactive, but that won't help you advance spiritually. You have to wait for everybody to tell you something. You could wait around forever. Maybe nobody will tell you anything. They'll just ignore you because, you're not very enthusiastic. That's that other instruction. Utsahan nishchayataya. So that's the first ingredient. Why is it the first ingredient? It's the first ingredient in anything, actually. One is not enthusiastic about something, he won't do it. He'll just kind of like, half-hearted, they call it. But when it's politely said, it's called half-hearted. Right? Half-hearted. Or was that where we were reading yesterday in Perfect Question, Perfect Answers, and Prabhu was describing the mudhas and these different, he called it asology. Right? So this Prabhu has a way of tweaking terms to make perfect contextual understanding. So this is where also, seeing a situation where we can observe how one can advance. You see who gets Krishna's mercy, who's enthusiastic, who's patient, who's confident, who's faithful. It's not an accident. This can be seen and observed. Prabhupada could see it very clearly. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saw it. What? How did he mark Srila Prabhupada? He said, I have marked. He will do very wonderful things. Because he could see that he had these ingredients. Utsaha nishtaya daryat. So we should, again, not imitate, but follow. Prabhupada is the perfect example. He is the preceptor and the Acharya. Both are there, not just one. That one should teach by example. Teaching is there, but by example. What's that common saying in how does that work? Those who can do, those who can't teach. Those who can do, those who can't teach. We see that a lot. A lot of people who understand things theoretically, but not practically, they're teaching things, but they really don't have any practical experience. Many people fake it till they make it, so to speak. You know, they really don't have a grasp. Just like you can have so much book knowledge, and that's the actual definition in that verse. What's that? Samodamo tapasocham shanti arjuvamevacha gyanam bigyanam astakyam brahmakarma svabhavajam. That samodamo, that these qualities of the Brahman, samo can be considered to be peaceful, or damo, tolerant, tapa, austere, shotram can be honesty, arjavam is actually honesty. But the jnana bhigyanam, knowledge and realized knowledge. Right? So this is the difference between those who can do and those who can't teach. So that if you actually have gyan, book knowledge, I read a manual. They have Chilton manual. They make it for every single car. It's a famous line of books. If you ever go into any auto parts store, you want to get a manual, not the manual that comes with the car, which tells you nothing, tells you how to push a button. You want to know how the car actually works, how to fix something, you go to the store, you buy a Chilton manual. It tells you all the details, every single aspect of the car. The car has many systems: electrical, vacuum, mechanical, everything is there. But it's just a book. It's not realized knowledge until you start to do it. When you start to put everything into practice, then you get practical knowledge. That's wisdom. Okay? So we have this opportunity here. Everything in the beginning is theoretical. Right? I may have some initial taste, because the holy name is very special. It's invested with all Krishna's potencies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. And so Krishna will, from within, he will give you some enthusiasm initially to give you as an impetus to continue further. This is not it happens to everybody. This is the science. Krishna consciousness. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Nama Shuddha Purna Mukta Binarbam Nama Namina. That Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, all of these are on the absolute platform. Nama Chintamani Krishna is exactly the same. But there's also, we're reading in the purport. Krishna's name and Krishna himself are non-different. If you worship the name or you worship the deity, it's the same. But you have to have that realization. The neophyte doesn't have that realization. By or not, it will have an effect. The nature of that which is absolute. It acts whether you have some philosophical or nominal, phenomenal knowledge of it or not. Just like rain. You can believe it or not believe it, but if you walk into the rain, you'll get wet. It doesn't depend on your belief or unbelief, disbelief. And it's the same thing with the sun. And you can say, well, I don't believe in ultraviolet radiation. I can't see it, can't touch it. But you will get cooked, without a doubt, because it will act. It doesn't depend on your knowing or not knowing. So these things are there. Spiritual life, devotional service will act. Initially, it may take some faith because you don't have practical realization. Once you have practical realization, then your enthusiasm builds and you invest yourself completely into the process. And the more you do so, the greater the result, the greater the return. Just like anything. So that enthusiasm is absolutely necessary. And without it, progress is very slow, if at all. And maintaining one's enthusiasm means to follow the program that Prabhupada chalked out for us. Mangalarti, 16 rounds, proper worship of the spiritual master in the context of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Right? Everything has to be there. And then it will be easy to advance in spiritual life. But if one is slack, if he starts to ignore these things, then he will see that my enthusiasm is, what happened to my enthusiasm? Where did it go? I can't find it. What is that? Remember they used to have those necklaces. I've fallen and I can't get up. You had to press a button on it. They used to sell them for old people, and you would put this like an alarm, and it would contact some relative. Let's say. But the advertisement was, that I've fallen and I can't get up. So this is the whole, concept here is that, you lose certain things and you fall. The only way you can get up is by somebody coming again, giving you that jump start, that infusion of nectar. Your God brothers, your God sisters in spiritual life. They are the ones who help you when your battery's dead. So you have to, and of course, we should be there for them. When you see someone is not, for whatever reason, looking very enthusiastic, you can inquire. Say, Prabhu, how's your, what is this, in the purport? It says, he asks, how is his spiritual life, basically. How the greeting on the side, how's your bhajan and how's your puja? How's your worship? How is your bhajan? They don't ask you, how are you? How's your body? They ask you, how's your spiritual life? How's your spiritual practice? So that's our concern. We want to make sure that everyone is healthy spiritually. Yeah, we want to make sure everyone is healthy physically as well in order to execute spiritual life. But if you're not healthy spiritually, then that will, what do they say? Healthy mind, healthy body. They don't say healthy body, healthy mind. Do they say that, Bhagavatam? Do they say healthy body, healthy mind? Or do they say healthy mind, healthy body? Yeah, the common saying is healthy mind, healthy body. But even the karmis know that. That such situations like depression leads to deterioration of the body. Neglect begins at the mental level. And someone probably even mentioned that, most illnesses stem from mental conditions. One, for whatever reason, you could say it's because a person would neglect himself, or he can even impose upon himself. You can make yourself sick. You even have a psychological term for it. What is it called? One is hypochondria, another one is psychosomatic. Either way, it happens all the time. They even have one that's even more insidious. And that one is called, what is that called? I forget the term, but it's where a guardian or a parent makes a child sick in order to get attention. What's that called there? Anyway, it's a term. My good wife's a nurse. She comes across these things all the time. Munchausen syndrome. Munchausen syndrome. You never heard that? Munchausen syndrome? It's where a parent or a guardian will purposely inflict onto the child something which they can then use to get attention for themselves. They'll take to the doctor, my child has been sick and nobody's taking care. And what we find out is that the mother's been giving the child antifreeze, in little doses to make the child sick. And even up to the point where they'll kill the kid, through this poisoning, just to get attention for themselves. Right? Munchausen, it's called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Nasty. So there's all types of diseases in the material world, physical, mental, etc. But the only way to overcome all disease is to become completely free from the bodily concept of life. And then disease has a much harder time to take hold, because you're practiced to guard your immunity, your physical and your spiritual. It's all connected. Healthy mind, healthy body. So not artificially, one has to have that internal conviction, right? That I can do this, I can take care of this, I can overcome this. One has to be, it has to have that positive outlook. But if one just thinks, I'm just so sick, leave me alone, don't bother me, come back in a week, yeah, that's not a devotee's mood or mentality. So this is, and we see that here, of course, in the previous purports also. It's described that Krishna will give you, you don't even have to ask Krishna. Because he's within the heart. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sanidishtam taksmati agyanamapodamcha. That I'm seated in the heart of every living entity. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So how can that be? Unless Krishna was situated there, understanding every aspect, of your spiritual, physical, psychological, situation. So, if the devotee is pure in heart and he has a desire to serve the Lord, whatever facility is required, the Lord will give you. He will give you whatever. He will preserve what you have and carry what you have. So you just have to, again, utsaha nisayat daya, patience. One has to have patience, firm conviction and patience. Rupa Goswami is giving us the ingredients. Just like you have a test, an open book test. They tell you, look, here's the answer. The answer is enthusiasm, firm conviction, and patience. Okay? That's it. Pass the test, 100%. And but somehow or other we vacillate. We think, well, maybe that's not for me. Maybe that's for somebody else. I'll skip the enthusiasm. No, you can't. You can't do it. You can't skip enthusiasm. You can't skip firm. You can't skip any of these things. You can't skip any of that. All of it has to be in place. And enthusiasm doesn't mean like jumping up and down wildly like a madman. That it can be. But it means the ability to put your mind to something without external motivation. It's internal. I'm doing this. That's enthusiasm. The ability to do something on your own, knowing that it's the right thing to do for the right reason. Regardless, I may not even consider the result. The result may not be in my best interest, so-called best interest. You're walking in the temple and somebody goes to put $100 bill in the hundi and it misses, lands on the floor. You could pick it up and put it in the hundi. It's not in your so-called best interest. I could use $100. go down to the bodega down the block and buy some mango juice, and treat all the brahmacharis. That's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is that, what are they, even in the material world it is said that character means doing the right thing even when no one is looking. That's character. Doing the right thing even when no one is looking. That's hard. Because it's so easy just to put that $100 in your pocket. But what does that say about you? So we have a lot of opportunities to do the right thing all the time. We have a lot of opportunities to do the wrong thing all the time. But this is the choice. This is character. And that character we see defined very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. Is knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, to whom. So the emphasis there initially on understanding, that Krishna is leading up. He's telling Arjuna, Evam Parampara Pratim. Then he said, Tad Vidi Pranipatena. Try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire submissively, render service. Self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. There's that same pratyaksha. He has seen the truth. So, to the extent that you see the truth, that you can recognize that I'm making a little advancement spiritually. And you have to build on it. You have to continually to act on it. And if you continually act on it, your faith will be firm. Your conviction. You will go from the neophyte up to the next level. You won't be easily dissuaded by some false, spurious arguments. They'll come and try to tell you how you're just brainwashed in a cult. You only took to this process because you're burnt out. We've heard all these things. But these things are all based actually on their ignorance. They don't understand that what reality is. So from their perspective, yes. Prabhupada said, no, it's not brainwashing, it is brain cleansing. So it's very clear. We understand. We want purification. We don't want continuous contamination. Actually, people now are waking up to the constant stream of propaganda and manipulation coming from the media. Back in the day, people didn't grasp how powerful it would be. There was one person who did. He was studied in school even then. His name was McLuhan, and he wrote a book called, anybody know? No? The media is the message. The media is the message. And now it's come to pass. And what do you have? You have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have every possible platform. And what are these platforms used for? Everyone's trying to get across their own point. And these points are not in your best interest. Whoever's creating them, it's in their interest. That's why they've created it. They even call them creators. And what do they think? They think everything I create is mine. So, this content is mine. Whatever you click on is mine. Whatever money, it's all. There's a very difficult situation to rise above if one is not intelligent. To see through this. It's all propaganda. It's not a question of good side, bad side, left side, right side, this side. It's all propaganda. It's all against your ultimate benefit of self-realization. But once you have achieved that certain level, you can see through it. And if necessary, just like Srila Prabhupada, he would look at newspapers. Every day he would get a newspaper, wherever he was. And he would check it out. He said there's no injunction against hearing ordinary news, but not to become so engrossed in it that hours pass by. He would just scan the headlines, and he would comment, nothing new. Birth, death, disease, and old age. Nothing new. How many ways are there to die? A train wreck, airplane crash, car crash, but it just means death. It's all the same. And then one paper screaming overpopulation, another paper screaming this and that, the other thing. So, it's just birth, death, old age, disease. Every day, what do they have in the paper? What's the people turn to the obituary? It must be some type of real, why do they want to go to that section? Why does a newspaper even have an obituary section? You have to announce that someone died. This person was such a nice person, and he leaves so many other nice persons. It doesn't, but it's there. So it's fulfilling everything that the Shastra alludes to, which is mundane. Totally mundane. Useless knowledge. Anyway, we're going to go over. We have Maha Cleanup today. Sunday is a special day for us. We get an opportunity to greet guests. You never know who they are. Prabhupada was describing that one has to develop compassion. And compassion is not just something that you put on Sunday. Let me put my compassion badge on today. And I'll go greet the guest. No. Compassion has to be a common part of your spiritual development. That's how you rise from one level to the next. Without compassion, there's no advancement. And many people don't recognize what the symptoms of compassion are. We're very automatically, what's that verse? Nirvara sarva bhuteshu yasamam eti pandava. Says that one of the qualities of a devotee is that he's not envious of anyone. He's not envious. So if he's not envious, that means he recognizes that everyone is eligible for spiritual life. There's no disqualification. I'm envious. I can't be envious and do book distribution, because I have to see Vidya Vinaya Sampanye, Brahmaga. I have to see every living entity as on that spiritual platform. Suni chaiva supake cha, pandita samadarshana. We don't have that completely equal vision yet, but it's an exercise. You try. You see everyone equally, then you can say, okay, let me try to give this person some Krishna consciousness. Doesn't matter. He looks like a bum. You can't tell a book by its cover always. Maybe a very intelligent bum. Right, Bhakti Ryan? Bhakti Ryan met one yesterday. He took Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita. He was almost, why was he homeless? Because he was frustrated with the material world, and he didn't want any part of it. Right? So he was eligible. A Bhāgavatam and a Bhagavad Gita. We'll probably see him at the Sunday feast tonight. Did you give him an invitation card? Dr. Ryan passing out those books. You became an instrument. Nimitta Macham Bhava Saryasashi. So this is our duty, is to exercise compassion. And Prabhupada's Sunday feast, what did he call it? Sunday Love Feast. Of course, this was 1967 when he coined this term. But Prabhupada was a seer. He was way ahead of, all these other, so-called, now they have these mega churches and things like that, and they're all just nothing, they're literally imitation of, of a Sankirtan, party. Now they've incorporated instruments, and they've incorporated choirs, they've incorporated dancing and responsive chanting, but it's just, it's nothing new. It's just an imitation of the Sankirtan movement. So Anyway, we have, today's our day to open our doors, invite the public in, and be present. Don't go hiding. Sometimes I see the Sunday feast is very sparsely populated by devotees. You know, we don't have a day off when it comes to preaching. There's plenty of time in the day to wash your clothes or perform other personal hygiene. You just have to figure it out. If you make the endeavor to utilize all of your time for Krishna, all of a sudden you'll find yourself with extra time, because you'll be so efficient and so effective that Krishna will let you see how things can be done in such a way that you'll have more time than you needed for anything you want. But you have to first endeavor to serve Krishna, and he will give you the intelligence how to do these things. He says it, I give them the intelligence by which they come to me. So we have to have faith, enthusiasm, patience, firm conviction. Okay? Any questions? Yes, Deepak. You don't need the mic. Oh, you need the microphone for the audience? You can tell me the question on that. Well, what do they say? Practice makes perfect. You know, it's not everything should become second nature. I shouldn't have to even think about it. It should be automatic. But up until that point, it's practice. You know, one practices anything. He wants to become a musician, he has to practice 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 hours a day. Anything you want to achieve, a certain level of competency, you have to practice. You know, this is where you get it. When they say knowledge, skills, and abilities, this is exactly what it's referring to. Is that you don't have to, you know, there's so many different ways to say it. But competency is measured by your ability to execute and utilize all of your knowledge and apply it to whatever. You know, it can be to baking a cake. It could be to, you know, cold fusion. You know, whatever it is, you just have to apply it. You know, all of your knowledge in a focused way, and you will get the result. It may not happen immediately. You know, Edison, who invented what? The light bulb. He said, success is born out of 1,000 failures. But don't give up. You know, because there's no success in failure, in giving up. You only fail when you give up. Everybody knows that, right? You know that, right? You only fail when you give up. So if you think, oh, I'm not making spiritual advancement, I need to give it up. Well, I mean, there's a few things about that thought pattern that make it an inconvenient, you know, truth in one sense. You know, you've already given up. You know, and just the fact that you verbalize it doesn't make it any better, or acknowledge it. You know, you think, well, let me acknowledge it. No, you don't acknowledge it. This is the mind speaking. You know, trying to divert you. Happens all the time. I can't. So that's saying that's a little tricky to understand. You have to break it down. You see, those who can do, and those who can't teach. And you always find somebody like that trying to tell you something, but they're not an example. They have no practical experience. They have some book knowledge, and they want to impress you with that book knowledge. And you see right through it. What do they call this person? They say he's an empty suit. He's an empty suit. In the West, they have a different saying. They say, all hat, no cattle. You know, that's the Midwesterners. You know, because cowboys, they wear a big hat, right? But you're not a cowboy if you don't have any cows. You know, so they say all hat, no cattle. Anyway, there's different ways of putting it. Basically, empty suit. So you don't want to listen to your mind is the first empty suit. You don't want to listen to your mind at all. Unless it's your best friend and telling you, yes, you need to get up and go to Mangalarti. Right? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said you beat the mind with shoes and brooms. Why did he say such a thing? That sounds really cultish, doesn't it? Right? Beat the mind with shoes and brooms. But you have to understand the analogy, where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is coming from. He understands how to apply that analogy. Why? Because the mind is so negative. What do you want to say? I want to sleep for 5 more minutes. I want to sleep for 10 more minutes. I want to shut the snooze. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's the mind. Every morning. It doesn't let up. It'll never let up. It just becomes easier to ignore. All right? You conquer over the mind in that way by ignoring it. Just like when you get these spam calls, and they call you up on the phone, what do? You ignore them. You don't sit there and listen to them for 10 minutes, tell you how you ignore them. Who listens to a spam call except, little old lady in Florida lost $40,000 in life savings. Happens all the time. Sad stories. Why? Because she listened, not only she listened to her mind, she listened to somebody else's mind too. It's terrible. So don't listen to your mind, don't listen to anyone else's mind. Just listen to Krishna. Listen to your intelligence. Dadami buddhi yogam tam, jena mam upayantite. Your intelligence. That Krishna is giving you. And it's use it or lose it. If you don't use it, then yes, it'll get lost. Because what happens when you don't use your muscles? What do they say? What's that term? Atrophy. So you don't use your intelligence, it becomes atrophy. You don't use anything, it becomes atrophy. So you have to use it or lose it. Every day you're learning something, you have to apply it. I learned today how to surrender. I don't want to do the pots, but I'm going to do them anyway. Maha cleanup. I have to contribute. Everyone's doing their part, I have to do my part. But I guarantee you there are some that say, no, I'm just going to avoid it, I'm going to go hide. Don't be that person. It won't do you any good. You won't have any good memories about washing Krishna's pots and all the realization associated with it. And that would be a very sad thing. Okay, any other questions? Samaks Prabhu. Well, I mean, it's not a question of levitate. Envy is, because the heart has so many material desires, it manifests in this, and that's the verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasojati Nahangshti, lamentation, hankering and lamentation. These things are the root of envy. I want what that other person has. And, it's not envy to want somebody's good nature when one can achieve it on his own simply by following the example. I don't have to steal it from you. Can't steal. I can't steal your spiritual advancement. So what's the point of being envious? It's a useless waste of your existence to be envious of someone. You can appreciate someone, you can admire someone and try to follow in their footsteps. And you can see that. How does he achieve such a nice equiposed attitude in every respect? He's not disturbed. Dira tatra namuyate is a thing. And it doesn't just mean heat and cold, happiness and distress. It in every aspect. But that's the training initially. Why do we emphasize, not me, why did Prabhupada start the process? And we can just imagine this. In the cold winter, nobody wants to take cold baths. Right? But yet, in order to perform, deity worship, puja, or any spiritual activity, one has to take bath. So what do you do if there's no hot water? Skip the bath? No, skip the bath, you're in Maya. Not only in Maya, you're neglecting your duties. You can't go on the altar, you can't do anything. So Prabhupada used to take, when Prabhupada was living at Radha Damodar, and in other places, but from Radha Damodar it's documented, he would fill up the bucket of water at the hand pump or the tap if the municipal water was on. He would carry the bucket up the stairs. Out there's a set of stairs outside Prabhupada's rooms that go to the roof. And he would put the bucket in the sun, the early morning sun, to try to get it a little warm. No, he didn't have an electric immersion heater. There was no electricity per se, for that capacity. So what kind of austerity? Prabhupada is 60. How old is he then? 60 years old? 59, 60? He didn't say, well, I'm an old man, I don't have to take bath today. No. He did the needful. Put the water upstairs, let the sun just take the chill off it. And then in that cool morning air, whatever it is, you come strip down to your gamsha, and you take that cold bath. So this is the example. If one wants to take that example, then you have two taps on the shower. One cold, one hot. Why does your mind not let you touch the cold tap? You have to experience it. Until you experience it, then it's just like talking to, to the wall. Not that you guys are walls, but, And so, it will help you to conquer the mind. And this is the first challenge when you come to Krishna consciousness. That once you conquer the mind, one who conquers the mind, spiritual life is easy. It's easy. Before you know it, 50 years will be gone. Boom. Any other questions, Mr. Samoksh? Okay. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki. It's a good thing we have the mic on.